Well, give me a break. Here, let me unplug this for a while. There we go. All right. I can lean way over here. Welcome to the Indian Wells Valley Water District Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday, November 5th, 2:30 p.m. I'll officially call the meeting to order at 2:30. Are there any public comments or committee comments? There's no public, and the committee doesn't, they're just sitting there quiet, so, all right. Fraud risk.
We have nothing to report.
Well, thank you. That's always good news. GA imported water costs, discuss imported water costs, potential impact to customers. Is there anything further to report on that, George?
Nothing other than for the next GA meeting, we will be sitting down with the GA to look at ways that we might cooperate in areas where we find common ground. There was a suggestion that that could lead to the GA working with us to update our cost analysis and give us more information about how they see costs being allocated, but nothing solid has come out of that at this point in time.
All right, thank you. Anything else from the committee? David, anything? All right, third quarter 2024 investment report. Ty?
All right. So you have the table in front of you. It shows unrestricted funds of just over 9 million and restricted of just under 7 million for a total of almost 16 million. The restricted funds are made up of, we have the balance of the state grant for the Northwest Transmission Line. We have the Assessment District 87-1 reserve funds. Those are going towards those new meters. 5.4 million in the 2024 bond funds and 70,000 of capital facility fees.
All right. And the ones that are deposited with Kern County and I guess the local agency as well.
Right.
Are those interest drawing?
Those are interest drawing. Yep.
Okay. And where do we see that interest accumulated incidentally, or
What's that? Sorry.
where does the interest show up? Does it go right back into the fund, or I'm just
Right. Yeah. It's in the non-operating income.
okay. All right. Gotcha.
I'll let you guys note the alternate water supply, future source of supply. There's $2 million in there. At some point, we may come and request some funding out of that to look at a recycled water project, just so you have an idea that that's one of our accounts, and that's where we may look to draw funds for that project.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that was going to come up. I don't know if you're going to bring it up here at this particular time. You're going to wait.
It'll be a
You actually have some
future agenda item.
future agenda item. Okay. And that's strictly because that's beyond your authority for, you're thinking for approval for moving on with the study?
I believe the estimate we're gonna get from Krieger and Stewart is gonna be beyond my $50,000 to start those initial studies.
As well as we don't have it budgeted.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a couple good reasons to have the board involved, particularly because you guys are smart guys and.
Well, if you put, never mind. Let me analyze that.
Let that one go.
No, I was gonna give Ty
Yeah.
a stroke. Okay. So nothing else to report on that?
No.
All right. Okay, so financial statements. Let me have a moment to go over. Go ahead with a financial statement while I'm looking at accounts first.
Sure. For the financials, we have received 5.8 million in revenue, which is 156,000 over budget. You'll see our total water sales are slipping. They're below budget, but our GSA fee is above budget. And the GSA fee, as far as the budget, is probably just, we did change the methodology in how we pay the GSA fee.
Right.
And so, and how we collect it, of course, with the tiers. The larger tier, or the larger consumption in tier 2 comes in the summertime. And this is more of a straight line analysis. So we gotta play with the GA budget monthly budgets.
Are we still getting our credit?
Yes.
Are we close to finishing that up yet? Or
No,
still another
so
year?
that'll go through this year and then next calendar year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The way that you're doing it? Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to take it all right at the beginning, but we've spread it out monthly for 2 years.
That to help them out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Expenditures, on the other hand, are at 6.58 million, which is 400,000 over budget. Once again, this is for the most part GA related. We do have a delta between what we've brought in and what we've spent for the GA fees, and that's more due to timing.
That's what I was going to ask you, because both the GA fees, of course, obviously the revenue, and then of course the expenditures, they seem abnormally high from the budgeted amount. Is it because of timing?
It's timing, how we have projected monthly expenditures for those lines isn't quite right. I need to play with it a little more.
Okay.
To weight heavier on the bigger months. And then we have been pumping and consuming more this. Well, that's not quite true. It's more of a timing issue.
But it's still money in, money out.
It is money in, money out.
Yeah, if you take those two figures out of this revenue expenses,
And once we get to the end of the year, that'll true up. That'll be.
that's what I thought. But I
there's
did
not gonna
notice
be a large delta there.
water sales seemed to be higher. Is that a timing issue, or they were just higher?
Water sales is actually low.
I'm sorry, lower, yeah, than expected. Is that expected?
I think we'll catch up a little bit this month because we did have a higher last couple months. And
Right.
those bills as they come in, we'll catch up a little bit, but we are overall down.
And it should drop off now that we're into winter months, I think.
It should level out.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
The gap in expenditures and income, looking quickly over the actuals, that's virtually all due to the GSA fees.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you say that's going to even out?
Yes, that'll even out by the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
Yeah. Do note that we have 4.7 million in capital expenditures. We do have one capital project that's going over budget, which is that groundwater model.
Right.
So we budgeted 314,000 and we're already at 360,000 on that.
Yeah, I saw that in the note. What's going on with that? I mean,
So-
are they doing more than we want, or is it going longer than we want, or is it a typical, I hate to say it's a typical engineering thing of, let's keep engineering this thing forever and not bring it to a conclusion?
So I think the board's aware that I asked our consultants last year to provide us with
Right.
estimates. I think they just failed to provide us with accurate estimates. I think it's appropriate for the board to talk to our consultants at the appropriate time and say, we need we need more accuracy in
Yeah,
these estimates.
that estimate was pretty far off, wasn't it? Was it $60,000 off? Was
Well,
that?
that's not even the end of it, because we're just early in the year
Yeah.
and we're already over budget and the model's still not done. So it's going to have an impact.
We need to look into that. I
Yeah.
really, because we're talking what, 60,000 was, if I remember correctly, roughly so far above what they budgeted?
Right.
And you're looking at more? Something's way going on here. And I think that we need to press, don't you agree, David, that we need to press Tim in such, what's going on here? This isn't 16,000 or 6,000, it's 60,000 and we're still got more going on.
Yeah. So, we
I have a
just,
problem with that.
yeah. And I think it is something that we need to, particularly as we move forward with a 218 process, we need to make sure that we have accurate assessments of what these future fees are going to be, not just in this year, but in coming years as well, because that has a huge impact on our overall budget.
Well, the static model should be complete. That's the Rambo one. The state paid for a lot of information such.
Yeah.
But this dynamic model is the one that's costing all the money.
Yeah.
And at some particular point, it's only going to mean when you need to run some new numbers through it. You have a static model. I mean, you have a dynamic model. They go, if this, what if this? And then anytime that question is asked that you need to verify again, then you run the model. And I don't understand what running the model means. I'm sure it's a mathematical computer input output thing.
And
is.
it could be we got our wires crossed a little bit on what constitutes the model, because I am assuming that all that work done up at Little Lake was for information to feed into the model. And so that Little Lake work was included or is at least charged off to that account.
And I don't know the answer to that one. I always looked at Little Lake as a standalone project, not part of that model.
And that could be, but I was never given a.
But even
budget,
that
so
is
we didn't
fairly
have it in
complete,
there.
is it
I think there
not?
was, I think in that case, I don't know that nobody asked Ty to create a separate line item for that.
I just think it needs to be looked at closer.
Yeah.
Something's going on there. And when we're talking 60 and maybe 100,000 or 120,000 by the time they finish this thing. And I have a real problem with what's going on with that. These guys ought to be able to give an estimate based as much work as they've done. They ought to know what needs to remain to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just so far off to me. I think anybody that requested capital money, and what fund is this coming out of mostly?
So it's in the capital, so it's coming out of rate revenue.
Yeah,
And that creates problems because we didn't have a lot of money for capital expenditures. We had about 500,000 this year. And, if you take 100,000 or more, that's a significant impact to the district.
yeah. I just think that needs looked at. I can't justify it myself. I looked at it and knowing what we've known and what we've been told, and plus the estimates that were being done, I just have a hard time wrapping my arms around it. And I think it needs to be questioned closer. I'd like to see more details about what that's entailing and why. And as if it's something you can control better, I think we need to. It's just way too much money, in my opinion, as much as we spend. What have we spent to date on the thing? Do you know? It's what you consider the model.
1,000 on that account, you said?
Yeah,
800 something?
For the model, if I include everything I have been, which is, that Little Lake and everything, we're at 1.2 million or so.
Oh, man. Okay.
That's the seismic work, that's all that stuff.
Right. No, that's back to the seismic work too. That was done,
Couple years ago.
that was finished. I
Few
remember
years
that was
ago.
250,000 or something, I
Mhm.
think, wasn't it?
A lot of that was purchasing the data.
That's what I thought, purchasing the data.
Yeah.
And then you had whatever happened with Little Lake with the wells and everything else. And then you have them, is everything being billed as one lump sum? Can you tell? To me, there's three projects there. One is the seismic data, one is anything to do with Little Lake, and the other one is to do with the model that they're creating for the adjudication.
It is differentiated on the bills, but because for the capitalization purpose, we lump it all together because it's one project to develop one semi-tangible asset that we can use for future.
Yeah, and
years.
I understand,
So that we
yeah.
capitalize it under one account, but we can go through invoices and pull out the.
How much, I don't want to, put weeks of work on you or, I know you have enough to do as it is, but how hard would it be for just our next meeting here? To come out and say, here's what's been spent on that capital asset, if that's what you want to call it, through these projects, and here's a model for the adjudication, model for, I've always thought Little Lake, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, I always felt Little Lake was a separate project. Now, if
That's what I
they're,
thought too.
if they're using that data into the model, I can understand that, but I always thought Little Lake was its own separate project.
I think what Ron's getting at is if you could spend some time teasing apart those charges so he can take a closer look.
I think I can have that for December.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on financial statements?
Just to point you once again to the GSA number, we've spent 16.4 million.
And you still can't tell from their finances how much they truly have left in the replenishment fee account.
Not with the reports that are provided to the board.
All you can
I've
really,
seen their accounts go as low as a couple of million and as high as 6 or 7, but it fluctuates. I went back and looked at some of their board reports month to month and have seen sort of these.
I think a simple question to them would, how much money have you moved from the replenishment fee account to the operations fee account under the pump, wherever we're pumping, you keep moving it over. How much has been moved? And I thought that was on there.
It should be in the audit because it should be a due to, due from.
Yeah.
But I
I don't know if they run a running total on it. I always thought in my mind it was somewhere between 2 and 4 million, which means that they should have at least almost $10 million.
Yeah, I
And
mean, that might be a
replenishment
legitimate
account.
question for our board member Griffin to ask, and he's on their board.
I guess you could flat just out ask them, say,
I don't see why not.
of the total replenishment fee that you've collected, and he didn't say basically from us, the total plan, how much of that has been moved or loaned to another account?
Yeah. And
And we could do the math ourselves. Because I keep hearing they have 5 million, 6 million, 10 million. I don't know how much they have available. It'd be nice for us to know. Maybe it's something I just want to.
Yeah, Ty and I sat down with some of their budget reports and tried to figure out what was where, and
Oh, yeah, I looked at
it
it.
wasn't something I could figure out.
It could be a specific question for Chuck, just to ask him.
Yeah.
How much replenishment fee have you collected? And how much of that still remains the replenishment fee and how much has been loaned to another account? Because a bunch of it's been, I always see it being loaned $1 million here, 2 million here, type of thing. All right. 16 million, geez. Yeah, 13.5, and that's for, is that 3 years now or 2.5? Roughly. We've been paying replenishment for 2.5 or 3?
I think it's coming up on, I think we're almost done with year 3.
Year 3.
So is there an end on this?
Supposed to be 5 years
Supposed to be
Okay.
25 million.
or 25
5
million.
But there's no reason they couldn't just go ahead and
Oh, they could
have
do
a
anything.
4-to-1 vote on extending that.
Just like with the pumping fee, that was supposed to end after they collected an extra $1.5 million.
Yeah, those things don't end.
And they just left it, but why argue with it? Because all they're gonna do is pass another ordinance changing the pumping fee and again.
Yep.
It's almost a waste. All right.
It is a waste.
Okay. Onward. Anything else to tie on financials?
No.
Okay. Let's move on to accounts payable.
I didn't see anything unusual.
Yeah, I don't see anything on the line. Groundwater Authority is always high like that. Treasurer. And darn lawyers, we need to do something about that. You can't live with them and you can't live without them. What can you say?
And you can't find a cheap one.
And you can't find a cheap one. Now, let me see. Was there another page? Yeah, here we go. Wow. So in this period, we've 623 to the Groundwater Authority and 67, almost $700,000 in this period.
Yep.
Now it's money in and money out. That's, it hurts our ratepayers. There's no doubt about it. All right, I don't see anything here. David, you want to, you want to recommend
I recommend we.
Approve.
Yeah, the board approve the report.
all right, I concur. So both of us agree to recommend approval accounts payable disbursements. All right. Anything else on that? Future agenda items.
I have none.
You have none? I definitely think that when you get the costs together, recommendations together for the cost to, I guess what you're looking at for the wastewater is what's it going to cost us to come up with if we proceed, a final engineering plan. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And is that a full plan or just here's what we think it's going to cost? Do you want to go any farther? What are you looking at?
Yeah, the way I'll just sort of lay out the way I think we want to sort of walk through this. The first thing we want to do is really get our hands around what is technically feasible.
Okay.
Be that injection or percolation, and what type of treatment is going to be required. We know that the city plans to build a plant up to, it was secondary. And then, so we would need to do tertiary, and then beyond that and then how much treatment we will have to do beyond that depends on whether we do injection or percolation. And so what we want to do is first firm up whether it's percolation or injection, because that's going to drive a realistic cost estimate. I mean, this is
Right.
the way, this is how it's supposed to be done. You figure out what it's going to cost, and then you start going out and saying, okay, this is our sort of plan. And then we present that plan to the various funding avenues, be that the state revolving fund or to award a project or whatever. And we try to see what funding we can get to help support that project. And then you start getting into the full-blown design once you figure out that, we can or can't fund it. And so that's sort of the general path. The step we're going to take right now is going to be get that initial, can we do percolation versus injection? And what is sort of our conceptual design without, real, we'll call it the government would call it a WAG at sort of what it's
Yeah.
going to cost. It's going to be, a plus or minus 30% sort of guess on the cost of the whole project. And then we'll refine that as we start going down the path towards looking at funding.
Do most of the grants, if anything we apply for, have to be shovel ready?
That is,
So that would mean that if the board would agree that whatever initial cost estimates come up, the next step would be moving into design
Yeah,
to
and
be shovel ready.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
so that's why I said sort of the general plan, we'll want to check those boxes. I mean, I look at what the GA has done with the pipeline project, and it's certainly not shovel ready because it's not even through NEPA. They haven't even started
I know.
full-blown NEPA process. So I think we're gonna maybe take a little different approach than them in terms of being shovel ready when, we go out and ask for the funding. But,
Okay.
it's a process that takes years to get through, but, I think as we move from, I think we've done a really good thing. We went through and we did a extensive study of the science. Storage, safe yield, doing the model. And as we get done with that, then we start moving into the conceptual pieces of the solution. We don't want to decide what project we're going to do until we actually have a better idea of what's feasible and how the court and adjudication are going to play out. But we can sort of parallel the path and start the process and say, this is where we think we would like to go, but you really don't get there and really go in earnest after the money until you really get out of the adjudication, what the safe yield and what the storage values are. And we have assurances that we have a solid plan that's going to fulfill the requirements of Sigma.
And I think, I think maybe that's the way to go, because depending on what happens in adjudication, it may either buy us a whole lot of time to deal with wastewater, right?
Yep.
Or it may show that something, and plus it'll also tell us more about, is that water really worth?
Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, is a juice worth
Yeah.
the squeeze?
And I think there's,
And at some point, we may find out, based on adjudication that, we don't really need this right now. And let the city worry about what they want. So what you want to do is just get to the point to say, if we were to proceed, the whole project's approximately going to cost $50 million. And with operating costs included, it's going to cost us $3,500 per acre foot. That's what
Yeah.
you want to get.
and I was reading some stuff that our consultant Tim sent us that was 2015, 16 during the development of Sigma. And it talked about how, they fully envisioned that some Sigma processes would go through an adjudication down to a complete physical solution. And I think, we're going to try to be far enough along that we can present things in our physical solution that we think are realistic. And this might be one of them. We don't know.
Okay, yeah, that's another good point for it, because the physical solution should contain projected projects
Correct.
that could solve the problem to remain sustainable if people tend to use above
Yep.
their,
And that's if the safe yield
okay.
deems that we need to have projects.
Okay,
first.
so it's all sort of
we wanna
ties
be ready.
together. Okay. All right. All right.
I do have one request,
Yes, sir.
that the clock in the boardroom be adjusted to represent the current time.
We will do it when Christie's changes theirs. Wait a minute, theirs is correct now. Because they already had it wrong all summer. Now theirs is correct at Christie's. I kept saying, why don't you change it? Well, it's right around the corner. We're-
The clock is in protest of daylight savings time. so-
Yes, yeah,
I don't have a problem with that.
all right.
Okay.
We don't want our poll place in here to close early.
No,
And anything else? I asked one last question. We're all set, Ty, that, remember we asked about breaking out the cost for the adjudication somehow on the website, whether it's there or not, or when we get these questions about what that's costing us, whether it's by engineering versus lawyer, which I think are the only two main ones, whether that's being done or not, because that question is going to be asked again.
Yeah, I know we did break out legal.
Legal, yeah.
Administration.
Yeah, and then the engineering part too. And that's why it's important when you break this thing down for the engineering that maybe the two other projects come out of that, because those are sort of separate projects. I'll leave that up to you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Look at that.
Mr. President, let the
Yes.
record show that our engineer has adjusted the clock.
it took an engineer to do that?
I'm afraid
Oh, my
so.
gosh. Just
Thank
thinking,
you.
and Jason could have done it, or Ty probably, and,
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure Ty can reach it. I'm just
I
kidding.
noticed he left the general manager out of that comment.
What's that?
I noticed you left me out of that comment. I appeared,
You're
I'm
supposed to
clearly,
you
I'm
delegate those
I'm
chores. You don't
clearly
just-
not
All right.
capable.
If there's no more
you
comments or
delegate
future
those.
agenda items, if you don't mind, I'll close the meeting
Okay.
at 2:55. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh.